So we will start the class English studies in India. It's very interesting. It's about Indian English and how Indian English flourished in India. When we talk about literature in India, we have a lot of literature in India. We know that we live in a country where we find um, um, means countless number of languages. You cannot we do not have a record about certain languages exist in India. So that's why how English as a language came to India, flourished in India, and consolidated in India, and later on today we find that English is the most important language. People have forgotten other languages. Whoever is writing or is preparing to write, they think of English as the medium of communication. They want English to be the language so that it can reach multiple countries. It can reach maximum people, maximum readers. So that is why the paper is very important, and you should concentrate. The materials are not available in plenty that you find for other papers, but MEG-10 is very interesting, and whatever is provided in IGNO materials is quite sufficient. You should not go for, you should not opt for other materials. This is quite sufficient. Please go through the IGNO materials properly. It's written in very simple languages. You can easily understand. So all the students, all the candidates, all the readers, those who are present, you should go through IGNO material thoroughly. You need not um, have to read any other materials. I think for Indian literature in English, you have very least available materials in the internet. So we'll start the first block of MEG-10, that is first initiation of English language, introduction of English language, and how there is the language, how the language entered into the country, how it got consolidated, its historical overview. First, coming to the unit one, we find whatever is given, entry of English, a historical overview. It's purely Indian history. You can easily understand if you have a knowledge on Indian history. If you know Indian history, it will be easy to understand what exactly they want to say in block one, first unit. This unit discuss the interaction between history and culture. We find history is very interesting in India, full of struggles, full of exploitations. If you see the freedom struggle movement, if you see the reign of East India Company, British government in India, if you have knowledge on history, you can understand how interesting it is. Interesting not in the point of view that there were a lot of fightings and Mahatma Gandhi was of non-violence and satyagraha, all these things happened. These are some of the points we record in history, but you find that how India is full of a lot of cultures, multiple cultures, a lot of diversities. We say unity in diversity. You know that in discovery of India, Jawaharlal Nehru said that India is a country where we find unity in diversity. So it means we are living in a country where we find a lot of diversities. You find that certain kings came from other regions like sultans, Mughals, British, French, Dutch. Many countries have reached India in different periods of time, and they have changed to the great extent the cultural heritage of our country. We find that when Sultanate came, we find that Muslim culture dominated Indian cultures. Today we are, the musical instrument like tablas, the dress pattern that particularly lungi, that mostly used in village areas, lungi, that is a dress of the Muslims. We are using that irrespective of religions today, and it was a cultural part of Muslim religion or Muslim community. Now we have accepted it, and it's not only that. We are very much we are very much fond of biryanis, and biryani, is a product of Muslim culture. So how these things entered into India? Now today you find that fast foods are becoming very trending foods for all the urban people in our country. That is not our own culture. So India has a very specific cultural tradition. We found in India a very very different kind of culture that we don't find anywhere else in the world. And now the things have gone a tremendous change. We find that in India we have a mixed culture. Anyhow, we are not going to discuss what is going on today. We are going to discuss a historical overview of Indian culture and tradition during the British government, and how Indians, they interacted with the British culture, and how English as a language got consolidated in Indian territories. In Indian territories, English became a prominent language. Other languages, when Kothari Commission came, you will go for that. When Kothari Commission came in 1964, they introduced modern Indian languages, and they pointed that English should be the third language. Now you are also well aware of that. The first language is our mother tongue, second language is Hindi or Sanskrit, and third language is English. So English has become so much popular, and a time came also, you can easily see that a time came when English became the most prestigious language. One who is proficient in English gets the maximum prestige in the society, maximum attention in the society. So that happened because of this language. And when we go back to the beginning, when East India Company came to India and they started their reigning um, adventure, covering different states of India. They own different states by means of deceptive ways like the um, subsidiary alliances, many things, doctrine of lapse, that if you do not have a legal heir, your property, your kingship will go to the British hand. That is doctrine of lapse by Dalhousie. Then subsidiary alliances, Samanta Sandhi that you say in Odia, that was also introduced. Many things have been introduced in India by the way the British government can take over all the important states of India, and they succeeded in their attempt. Anyhow, by this British government means dragged Western culture into India. So that is why I say there was an interaction between history and culture. So now we are going to study a trend, we are going to study an author, a piece of literary work emerged and shaped in a particular time in India, influenced by this kind of interaction, history and culture. Culture says that India is a very rich culture. India is a very spiritual country. That different kind of movements, different kind of mutinies that was that occurred in India was because of this religious diversities, religious discriminations. The 1857 moment, if you know, if you have any idea about that, the 1857 moment, the great mutiny that we know happened in 1857 in India, the first war of independence, sometimes we say, that was due to this religious controversy, that they insisted the Hindus to open a package made of skin of the cows, that was against the religion of the Hindus, to taste the flesh of a cow, and that is why Mongol Pandey raised his voice, and there was the great mutiny. And that is why you see how the culture has been, contradictory cultures have been interacted in this process. And a language in the process of evolution introduced into the life of a nation newly got independence. After independence in 1947, after independence, Britishers left, but their footprints were left in India. And the language that they had introduced in 1835, that was also very important. You know that that language became the controversy, that became the controversy. Later we will discuss that how English, Hindi, Tamil, Kannada, these languages have controversies. Okay, so English became a language of study later on. So we'll go to that point. But now we will discuss history, how history allows English to be established in India. That is the part. So we see that Eastern and Western cultures together. Eastern culture means our culture, Western means British cultures. Not only British, we find French people having their colonies in India, the Dutch people, they have their colonies in India, and the Britishers also. Others have their colonies, but they are very minor in number, so that's why we are not going to discuss. And language force was there. Okay, so you know, language is the only way that we can communicate our thoughts. Language is, in the simple meaning you can understand, language is a medium by which we share our thoughts, we communicate our ideas, and without language, you cannot exist together. You need language. It is verbal or non-verbal. Language can be both verbal and non-verbal. Verbal in the sense when you use words, you when you use certain scripts, that is called verbal. But when you use body language, uh, gestures, that is non-verbal. Anyhow, um, we find that language is very necessary for interaction, for communication in the society. Okay, in the interaction between an alien culture and our rich culture. So in contradiction to these both cultures, one medium can be there, or only one can combine them, one can help them go together. That was the language. But at that time India had many languages, a lot of languages. We find in Odisha, Odia, West Bengal, Bengali, in Tamil Nadu, Tamil, in Malayalam, Telugu, Kannada, Hindi, Bihari, Bhojpuri, a lot of languages, lot of dialects. Even in Hindi, you find different sub cultures and languages have their own dialects. Like in Odia, we find Sambalpuri is a dialect. So, like this, you find hundred numbers of or more than that languages exist in India. And when the Britishers went to a particular part, they find the very difficulty to communicate with the people. So that is why their first attention was how to introduce their language so that they can communicate properly with the people, with the Indians. Okay. Next, we will discuss different kind of resistance on 20th century. That the struggle was beyond economic fields and became more hegemonic. Okay, so hegemonic means when British culture, when British government came and British cultures were introduced, when conversion was going on, Christianity was propagated. So at that time, we find that there was resistance. Resistance was from all the areas of India, all the territories of India. They resisted that this should not be done. Conversion was very common. Trevelyan was, we'll discuss Trevelyan. So Trevelyan, when 1853, 1835, when English was introduced, Trevelyan said this will, means he prominently, strongly insisted that introduction of English will help them to convert Indians from Hindus to Christian. That was the main purpose of introducing language according to Trevelyan. We'll discuss later. So that was the case, that hegemonic, it was hegemonic. It's not economic. By getting knowledge of English language, you are going to get a job, definitely. You will be economically sound. But according to religion, that was very very pathetic, that you are going to lose your religion very soon if you know English. That was the concept at that time. Writing their minds, transforming their attitude. So you have to win their minds. If you want to win the minds of the Indians, you have to introduce language, English language. And if you want to transform, if you want to change, if you want to divert their attitude, their minds, you need to introduce English as the language. Otherwise, they cannot deal with other different multiple languages of India available at the time. Okay, though this we explore English language. Okay, which took us directly to literature. So it is very important to note that if you want to understand, if you want to learn a particular language, it is very necessary to go through its literature. Without literature, it's very difficult to understand or learn a particular language. So English as a language was introduced. Later on, we came to know English. Now you can see in a very simple example, that when in the class 1 or 2, 3, whatever the class may be, in English you have stories, you have dramas, you have short plays, you have prose pieces, poetry. Why these are given in your text? Along with grammar, writing practices, you have been prescribed such kind of things only because only through literature you can learn a language better. So if you want to know a particular language, learn a particular language, you need to go to directly literature, to the literature. The writers and thinkers at that time in India, they were using English language. The common people, the people in the rural areas, they were least concerned about English language. They have no nothing to do with Indian English language at that time. So those who are educated, those who live in the urban areas, those who are very much elite in their position, elite class people, they are only using English language before the introduction as a in the in the education system of India. Okay, so English, growth of English language, we find the maximum growth of English language in the post-independence era. But before that, we find the English language introduced in the 19th century. In 1835, with the efforts of Macaulay, William Bentinck, and Trevelyan, we find Raja Ram Mohan Rao. We find that English was introduced. Okay, we find four major phases of English language in India. Okay, the first phase, when a policy framework created to introduce this language. This is the first phase. At this time, the Britishers faced a lot of problems. Britishers found difficulty in communicating and propagating whatever they want, they wish to convert, they wish to exploit the people. They wish to communicate with the values and ideas. Macaulay, in a certain instance, says that the literature produced in India in all the languages. We are different in opinion. If you say we have Indian literature and we have literatures in India. So literatures in India and Indian literature, two different things. Indian literature means um, all the means literature that is written in India or found in India. But when you say literatures in India, we mean that literature in each and every culture, each and every culture. You find that in Odisha we have a different culture, uh, starting from the food, dress, food pattern, dress pattern, different kind of ceremonies like griha pravesh or home marriage, birthday celebration, a lot of other ceremonies that we usually celebrate. We find different cultures in India, in different parts. They celebrate different cultures in different ways. They have different cultures. So that is why when they found Britishers found difficulty in communicating with different cultures in India, they tried to framework how to introduce English language in India. That was the first phase when policy was framed, policy framework was created. And the second phase when English affected our ideas and values. English affected our ideas and values. This is the second phase. So when English came to the field, when English was introduced, this hampered the original ethics of Indian culture. Okay, so a lot of Western styles, Western cultural trends were introduced with the language introduction. When introduction of English language was held in 1835, so later when you find in all the schools, for example, if you talk about Raja Rammohn Roy's letter, he was against the establishment of a Sanskrit college in Calcutta. He opposed it. He protested it because that Sanskrit college was not need of the hour. Sanskrit college was not need of the hour. The need was to establish a school, modern school, where they can be allowed to learn the current science and technology, whatever is necessary at that time. India was a way back. We will find from the modern societies and cultures in the world at that time, India was at the back. India, the students of India, the schools and colleges of India, we find that students were learning the traditional kind of lessons, traditional kind of education, which is not fit at that time, which was not suitable at that time. By learning that, simply you learn a particular language. Simply, Sanskrit was given importance. Sanskrit was a particular language you find in India. We say the all the languages have been burned out of Sanskrit. Sanskrit was very important. We give priority even today. But during Raja Rammohn Roy's time, Sanskrit was only a language which you will learn, which you will read, which will need to read, understand certain things, but it will not fill your stomach at that time. So if you learn only Sanskrit, it was not applicable. It will not give you a job. So Raja Rammohn, that is why opposed that a school, a modern school should be opened instead of a Sanskrit college, because Sanskrit college will force the students just to concentrate on how to acquire sufficient knowledge in Sanskrit. And at the end of the game, at the end of the study, you learn only how to speak, how to write, and how to understand Sanskrit. And that is not necessary. And by that, you get nothing. Okay. So it was the condition. In the second page, when English was introduced, we find that Indian culture was affected. When English language introduced, English culture delved into the Indian arena. And it was because of the language. We find there were changes in the dress pattern. There were changes in the urban areas. People they started loving English and thinkers, those who used to think with English language, they started to study English books. When you read English novels, English dramas, English plays, English poetry, definitely you are open to a new imagination, you are open to a new culture, and that happened. So when English language become compulsory in schools and colleges, students are bound to study English language. They got a lot of curiosity in English texts. So as a result, you find that the regional languages got neglected. People used to means it was a new language. English was a new language at that time. So a new language means they gave more importance to English. Then they started to study English. Okay, that was the very important part. By the result, we find that uh, our values, our ideas, our culture was neglected and affected because of the language, introduction of the language. And the third phase, after the phase is after the independence, or during the independence. Okay, dialectic supporting and opposing the emerging scenario in 1947. 1947, we got independence, and during that time, that was the third phase when dialectic supporting was there. Dialectic supporting means, support means, when we supported English language. Okay, we supported English language, we liked English language, we learned English language, but we find that there was an emerging scenario in which we opposed the kind of exploitation, opposed the kind of dominance that Britishers had. Because one more thing also you should know, that when English became a language, when English was introduced in India, we got a chance to look at what Boccaccio, what Rousseau, was Voltaire told in French Revolution kind of things, fraternity, equality, all these things came to the minds of India, which helped Indians to be united, which helped Indian to be have a nationalistic feeling, national integration that we say, that was due to this particular language. And this united the India and also helped the Indians to look at uh, the Western culture, the Western science, the Western knowledge uh, altogether through this language. That was the third phase, when the opposing was there as well as the supporting. They supported the language, but they opposed their behavior, their way of dominance. They dominated, they wanted everything. You know that in 1857, when the Great Mutiny, the first Indian War of Independence, took place in India, Queen Victoria came to India, and he changed, at that time, Queen Victoria changed the system of Indian government. The system of Indian government, uh, they means British government introduced a new system of rules for Indians. British government changed the concept of viceroy to governor general, and you find that the power of Indian government directly handed over to British government. Okay, that was a change also. But after that, the situation got worse. Okay, you know that how the governor generals, the viceroys, they wanted to exploit, how they wanted to take over all the things. They all these things went on. Okay, that was the last stage, or we can say the third phase of English evolution. And the fourth phase is the post-independent era. After the independence era, when the Britishers left, okay, so we accepted whatever they have given to us. We accepted that, and adopting English, we went on improvising English and making it the most important language, the official language of India. And that was after the fourth page, means that is the fourth page, post independent time. So this is the four phases of English, how English developed, improved, consolidated as a language in India. So in unit 2, we find Macaulay, Raja Rammohn Roy, and Charles E. Trevelyan. These three persons. Okay, Raja Rammohn's letter, Macaulay's minute on Indian education, and C. Charles E. Trevelyan's on the education of the people of India. These are the three important factors that you should discuss or you should be concerned about. Raja Rammohn Roy was a very educated person at that time. We know that in one of his letter, I said initially he opposed the establishment of a Sanskrit college in Kolkata. And according to him, why Sanskrit college is not the necessity of the hour, not the need of the hour. Rather, a school, a modern school was the necessity. How he protested it, he said in his protest, whatever he said in his protest, we'll discuss in the later. The later discusses that. So that is Raja Rammohan's letter. That was important, and it was an important factor which also helped in introducing English language and establishing English as a language. So Macaulay, uh, his statement in minute on Indian education, or minute you can say, minute on Indian education. So before the introduction of English in India, he has written this article where he discusses this part: Indian education, Indian culture, Indian heritage, along with uh, European British culture. Contradictory cultures. He talked about both Indian culture and the European culture. In a tone of sarcasm, he said that all the Indian literature, means literature, whatever in all the regional languages, Bengali, Odia, Tamil, Kannada, Telugu, all the literature together cannot get, are not worthy of being stored in any shelf of an European library. In any European library, there is not a single shelf that is worthy of, or that these literature can be stored at that self. It's a very sarcastic comment on Indian literature. He said that he respect the literature, he respect different regional cultures, regional languages. India has a rich culture. India has a lot of literary output, literary production. He praised that, but his comment on the worth of Indian literature is very ironic. He said that none of our literature is worthy to be stored in any European library. So that is why he said that your literature should be in English. That English literature is very worthy in comparison to English Indian literature. In his minute on Indian education, he said many things about Indian culture, Indian literature. Okay, so that is very important. You go through the material provided to you or available in the Gyana course, go through the Macaulay's particular part, so you can get better ideas. As the time is limited, we cannot complete all these things, but I just give you certain ideas or the summary of whatever he said. He was against this Indian literature. He opposed Indian literature to be worthy in comparison to European culture, European literature. Okay, so that is why English should be introduced, and you should write in English. And to have your literature to be flourished in international level in the globe, you have to know the language. The language is the best medium by which you can flourish your literature. You can reach, you can help your literature reach the maximum audience in the globe. Indian literature was confined to Indian territories only at the time. So that is why it is very important. You can know now by the translations. You have a paper on in MEG-14, Indian English in translation. So there you find that how Indian literature got placed in global literary fields because of translation. Translation was very important, and due to translation, we find that Indian literature got a place in international level. So Macaulay was ironic at that time, but he was true. He said the right thing, that though we have a lot of literature, we find a lot of books in India rich with Indian culture, but the language we use is not sufficient, and that is why only we cannot reach the global audience. It is only confined to India. That was Macaulay's point of view. Then Trevelyan's concept, the education of the people of India. In this article, he said that uh, he is of different opinion. Though he respected Macaulay's point of view, but he has his own point of view. He said that Indians should be given training on English language only because it will be easy for the Indian, for the Britishers, or for the Europeans to convert the Indians. It was very important point of view. If you consider Trevelyan's point of view, he said that in order to convert the Indians, we need to teach them English language so that it will be easy that we can convert them. So that was his point of view. It is very critical. You can understand that what was the real intention of Britishers to introduce the language. Anyhow, that was the four pages, and after that we find that these three persons, those who have affected the introduction of English language in India, it was introduced, it went, the language went over four important pages. After that, after independence, it became a very important language. Okay, so now coming to unit 3, we find a view of post independent debate. So in unit 3, we find that two important um, commissions to be discussed. One is the Radha Krishna Commission, and one other is the Kothari Commission. I was talking about Kothari Commission. Again, we can also discuss about the Radha Krishna Commission. Radha Krishna Commission discusses about the universities. Universities. These commissions are meant for education policies in India. Okay, when uh, after independence, India became a self-independent country. India became completely free of foreign powers. Okay, India wanted to grow itself. So at that time, higher education or education policies need to be modified, need to be changed, and for that commissions were held. And one commission after independence in 1948, that was the Radha Krishna Commission that came, and they said universities are homes of intellectual adventure. So universities are the places where we can we can Sir. So only university students have the scope to have adventures, and they said that is why university students should be given maximum scope, and English was a language for the university students, and English was a medium of language in university studies. According to Radhakrishna Commission, English should be the language of study. English should be the medium of study in universities so that the students can get maximum scope of flourishing themselves in terms of research, in terms of knowledge, in terms of being equal to the foreign students. They need to learn English. English language was become very prominent according to that commission. And the Kothari Commission came in 1964. Okay? In 1964, Kothari Commission came, and they opine that Language, they have the language question. Okay. At that time, you find all over the country after independence, there was a turmoil for creating national language. What was national language? What should be the national language? Hindi should be the national language. At that time, Hindi was the official language, but not the national language. So when the question of national language came, that was very controversial because the Tamils, particularly, they said we are not supposed to learn Hindi. Hindi is not our language. It is Tamil that we must speak. Particularly the southern states of India, they opposed this concept of making Hindi as the national language. Anyhow, Kothari Commission wants to know which language should be the medium of study. So that was the question of language that was solved by the Kothari Commission. That is important, and they made the first language. The mother tongue should be the first language. Okay, mother tongue. Modern Indian languages, we say MIL. That was the product of Kothari Commission. Today, even we are familiar to MILs. Mother tongue should be the first language. Hindi should be the second language, or Sanskrit, and then third language is English or any other foreign languages. Okay, so Kothari Commission approved this process of language, that a student should be inspired to study everything in the even in universities. They said that they make it very clear that regionalization of medium of education in universities. University students can also opt for their mother tongue should be as the medium of study. They said that in university, even today also, you find that in degree you can opt for your mother tongue. In arts you can opt for Odia. In Odisha you can write exam papers, you can study books in Odia medium. So that is due to Kothari Commission. That earlier in Radhakrishna Commission, it was made that university students, they should be taught in English medium, but that was not granted by Kothari Commission. According to Kothari Commission, that regional language should be the medium of study for even university students. You find today also going on, the same trend is going on. And then Hindi and Sanskrit comes. If you want, you can choose, and English for higher studies, very higher studies like post graduation and PhD and other things. For that, you can choose English language. That was the Kothari Commission, which they also somehow helped in consolidating Indian English in Indian regions. Okay, and the last unit, settling down of English as a medium and study. So in the last unit, we will discuss, or it is discussed, that English became a study itself. English was not a mere language now. English is a study. English become a prestigious language. Everybody wants to speak in English. English language, English literature became very famous. A lot of literary text in other languages, regional languages in India, got translated into English. And after all, you find now the status of English as a study and both as a language, how much it is referred, how much it is stressed in India. So this is all about the first block of English studies in India. I gave you a bird's eye view. I cannot go in detail in 1 hour, one block with 4 chapters. It's very difficult. Anyhow, I gave you certain points that are important in terms of the block one of MEG-10. And so you go through this material that is provided by IGNO to you. It's very good material. I have gone through the entire material. I found that you do not require any other material for preparation. So you, from the beginning, you start easily. You start reading thoroughly. Okay, without any problem. Thoroughly, you start and read it properly. You can easily understand whatever is said, and I have said also. And if you have any question, you can ask. Okay, block 2 on Monday, Tuesday. On Tuesday, Professor Dolamani Meher will take the charge of block 2 and he will continue. For his absence, I managed to prepare that much, and I also shared with you whatever I prepared. Anyhow, uh, next class will be at um, 3 to 4 p.m. today, 3 to 4 p.m., and that is MEG 14. So those who have MEG 14, or those who have means those who have MEG 14 in their optional courses, they may attend the class. It's very necessary. And anything, any doubt, if you have, you can ask. I hope you, all of you, have entered your names and enrollment numbers. Okay. So I hope the number will increase. So those who are absent today,
Yes,
uh,
sir.
hello. If anybody has to say anything, any doubt, any queries. Okay, so you please inform all of your friends. You may have your WhatsApp groups. You intimate all. If somebody, some of your friends may not have the information of these counseling classes, so inform them. And if more number of students came, it will be more interesting to take the class. And um, all the classes, it will continue from 17 to 2nd February. Okay, 17 January to 2nd February 2021. Every day, 4 classes, and whatever classes you have opted, accordingly you will attend. Okay. So you have the mobile numbers also in the schedule. So if you have any doubt, any queries, you can also ask through the mobile number. The links have been given. So join in time. Uh, for the better understanding, join in time. Always the time, 5 minutes may be given at the beginning, but you go on joining anytime, even at the till the end of the class, you are going on joining. So that is not good. Better to join at the beginning so that you can understand everything well. If you have any question, you can ask. Otherwise, we will wind up. Hello.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.